AI is not making every worker equally replaceable. It is making output-only work easier to replace. A draft, summary, customer reply, slide, policy note, code sample, or project plan can now appear in seconds. But generated is not the same as ready. The question is no longer only, can you make something? It is, will this actually work here? That word, here, is where human value changes. It means this customer, this system, this budget, deadline, legal risk, manager, team history, technical debt, and promise already made. Those details determine whether an answer can move forward or must stop. AI can produce a polished answer, but polished is not automatically safe, relevant, or responsible. The answer that looks best on screen can still create the biggest problem later, after everyone has acted on it. This is why the worker who knows the constraints wins. Not because AI is weak or humans are magically better, but because real work is surrounded by limits that rarely fit inside a prompt. A support agent remembers the customer already escalated twice. An engineer knows the obvious fix breaks an old workflow. A salesperson knows the deal is blocked by trust, not price. A healthcare administrator sees where compliance, safety, and documentation collide. People often imagine a clean contest between human output and machine output. Who writes faster, summarizes better, or produces more. That frame makes sense in a demo, where the prompt is clean and success is obvious. Real organizations are messier. Companies do not pay only for words on a page. They pay for work that survives contact with reality, earns approval, avoids preventable damage, and can be defended when conditions change. As average output gets cheaper, value moves toward understanding the customer's need, company rules, system limits, failure risk, and decision history. Research on customer support agents found that generative AI increased productivity, with the largest gains among newer workers. AI can compress the gap between weak and decent output, help a beginner sound experienced, and spread useful patterns across a team. That is real progress, especially where people need coaching and examples. But it also makes a decent answer less rare. When acceptable output becomes widely available, value moves toward the person who knows which answer fits this situation, which needs changing, and which should never be sent. BCG's research with consultants adds a warning. AI helped on some tasks, but performance fell when people used it beyond its competence frontier. This creates a jagged frontier. Nearby tasks can look equally suitable for AI while requiring very different judgment. The danger was not obvious nonsense. It was a convincing answer that was wrong for the problem. Confidence and polish can lower a reviewer's guard. Without boundary conditions, AI can make you confidently wrong by ignoring the business model, customer relationship, technical dependency, legal exposure, or an earlier failed attempt. This changes career leverage. Prompting is useful, but the deeper skill is knowing what context belongs in the prompt, which assumptions to challenge, and which risks to check. A replaceable worker asks for a draft and forwards it. A valuable worker asks, what constraint is missing? What would make this fail? Who is affected if it is wrong? What did we learn the hard way? That worker protects the decision, not just the output. You can see this across knowledge work. In product, AI may confuse loud customers with valuable ones. In operations, it may remove the exception that keeps a workflow alive. In compliance, it can summarize a rule without owning the consequence of misuse. In management, it may miss the history behind a person or metric. In software, senior value often means knowing why the simple solution is dangerous in this architecture. Experienced workers are not automatically safe. Experience that stays private, vague, or trapped in habit can disappear when a role changes. They become more valuable when they turn experience into visible judgment. Checklists, decision rules, annotated examples, escalation triggers, and explanations other people can use. Tenure alone is not a strategy. The advantage is explaining the hidden map, common failure points, customer sensitivities, approval traps, rules that cannot bend, and shortcuts that create cleanup. AI can produce work. You become harder to replace when you define what good work means here and help the team recognize it. There is a limit to this argument. Constraint knowledge is not permanent protection, and hiding information is not a career strategy. When companies capture rules, customer history, technical limits, workflows, and decision patterns, AI can use more context. Better systems will absorb part of today's human advantage. Jobs with tight rules, clean inputs, and predictable outcomes are also easier to automate. The durable move is to keep learning as reality changes. Your value depends on staying close to changing customers, risks, exceptions, trade-offs, and consequences, and making that judgment visible. The practical move is simple, not easy. Stop measuring your career only by output volume. Build a constraint map for work you handle repeatedly. Who uses the work? What breaks if it is wrong? Which rules shape the decision? What history explains the process? Which trade-offs matter to leadership? What does the customer expect, fear, or remember? Which AI assumption may be false here? Write the answers down, test them with experienced colleagues, and update them after surprises. These questions turn a deliverable producer into someone who understands operating reality. That is the new divide. One worker treats AI as a faster content machine and measures success by how many drafts leave the screen. The other produces faster, then applies customer knowledge, constraint judgment, historical memory, and risk awareness before the work becomes real. That second worker knows when speed helps and when a pause prevents expensive cleanup. The first competes with output. The second owns the context around it. When output becomes cheap, context becomes one of the most valuable things left. So the lesson is not simply learn AI. Learn the work around it. Learn the customer, system, rules, old mistakes, and hidden risks. AI can generate an answer, but workplaces still need people who know whether it should be trusted, changed, delayed, rejected, or defended. That is why the worker who knows the constraints wins.